Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of ECH Postgame Live. This one comes after a tough 5-2 loss against the Anaheim Ducks, in which the Kraken really got bullied on the ice and on the scoreboard. Not a banner game for Seattle, and I feel like this was the culmination of a few games where maybe they didn't play their best, but in the past were able to get away with it, were able to play against some teams that maybe weren't so good, and were able to come back. That was not the case tonight. It felt like for the first time the Kraken really did face the consequences of a poor start, even though they were able to come back and tie this one. They lose 5-2 to the Ducks, and yeah, I think they got bullied in this one, and especially physically, especially toward the end. I'm sure we'll talk plenty about this one. But first of all, thank you everybody for joining us post-game live. I know it's a tough game to join afterward. Happy early Thanksgiving to everyone, too. The Kraken play the day before and the day after Thanksgiving. So interesting quirk of the schedule, but hope everyone's going to really enjoy their Thanksgiving tomorrow. And we'll just jump right into chat here. By the way, we do have Dylan down in the locker room talking with the players and with Coach Dan. So we'll hear from him in a little bit to see kind of what the mood is after this one. I feel like this one's either going to be really short as far as time before he comes up and joins us, or it'll be really long. We'll see which one it is, but I'm curious the takeaways from some of the guys and from the coaching staff after this one, because yeah, this loss has got a sting. So let's just jump right into chat here, and we'll start with this one from B. Kraken really not giving us much to feel thankful for tonight. Yeah, as far as tonight's effort, there's not a whole lot there. And then Fusion Mix, what did I say about the Ducks playing like psychos? Yeah, I mean, the Ducks certainly did kind of play like psychos tonight. They played physically. They just went after people, and the Kraken didn't really respond in maybe the way you'd like to see them respond. But I mean, part of it too was the Ducks weren't playing all that good a defense and defending their lead. The Kraken had a bunch of chances in the third. John Gibson came up huge, and normally you would see the Kraken convert on something like that. But yeah, the Ducks didn't really even defend particularly well in the third. Just they got some good goaltending. And yeah, it did feel kind of like a psycho type of game. Jake, I remember why I've always hated the Ducks now. Yeah, this iteration of the team, they've got some guys. I mean, Ross Johnston was just going at people left and right all game. It's interesting to see that. I mean, we know Zegras, like even from last season, you know, he'll jaw at people, he'll try and get under people's skin. Certainly did tonight. Christian, not a lot to be thankful for in this game, but I'm thankful for having a hockey team and for ECH in the community. Yeah, thank you, Christian, and Dylan and I are so thankful for all of you for this awesome community that we have. And I'm thankful to be able to talk about a hockey game that I just watched. You know, even though this one didn't go the way we hoped, I'm still happy to be chatting about it with all of you. Super chat here from Light. Thank you so much for the super chat. This was rough, not going to lie, especially with how good the Kraken played with the net empty. It's just sad they didn't score. They really did put on a good push in the third period. I mean, there were so many chances. There was Yanni Gord's breakaway. There was Matty Beniers with a couple point blank chances. Andrei Burakovsky had one. They had their chances to put some in, especially with the net empty, with that power play. I mean, they didn't let off the gas. They didn't allow one on their own empty net. I mean, the Kraken do fantastic once they pull their goalie, but yeah, tough to not get those bounces, because these are 2 points that you're really going to need. But they did put on a good push there. Paul's with the super chat here. Thank you, Paul. Can we all chip in to send Maddie to finishing school? Yeah, some tough breaks for Matty Beniers in this one. Couldn't put him in the net. I mean, that one where it was passed right out into the slot for the one-timer, like, that's a tough one, because it's just, you have to shoot that right away. You have to just kind of find and try and pick a spot. Like that one, I felt bad for him. There wasn't a ton he could do there, but there were some other chances that, yeah, you know, you'd like to be able to find a spot on Gibson there. And you would like Matty to become more of a finisher. I feel like that's one of those things that we might see him develop, you know, maybe 4 or 5, 6 years into his career, maybe, if he, you know, can kind of develop that skill. I think he has that skill. I think he has that potential, but it just might be a little while before we see the really finished product. I think it might be kind of a long development arc for him there. Let's see, Fusion Mix Pat Verbeek's horrible vision is coming together. Yeah, it sure is. I mean, again, I don't think the Ducks played particularly well in this one as a whole, but yeah, they certainly bullied the Kraken here, and they played physical. This young ex Morte, losing is one thing, but standing by while your teammates get bullied is just shameful, man. That's my biggest takeaway from this one, is just that the Kraken got bullied and there wasn't a whole lot of response. And I'm really curious what Dylan will have to say as far as impressions from the players, from Coach Dan, about that element of the game, because I just don't get it. And I know you're down 2, you're in the third period, you feel like you're never out of a game, and if you take a penalty, maybe that can take you out of it. But at least getting in somebody's face, like when Jansen Harkins lost an edge, it goes tumbling into Joey Decord. Look, I know that's not intentional. He didn't mean to do that. I get it. Still, I think it should have been a penalty, because it's on you to avoid running the goalie. But also, I don't know why he's taking that line to where even if he does lose an edge, he goes straight into Joey. Somebody needs to get in his face on that, because Joey Decord is the one guy you cannot afford to lose if you're the Kraken, and you got to make sure that there's no mistaking. You cannot accidentally, on purpose, whatever, take him out like that without at least having somebody in your face. So I didn't like that. And then, of course, with Ty Cartier getting attacked by a couple guys while he's down on the ice, didn't like that. And yeah, I get it. The Kraken are still trying to come back in the game, but I didn't like the lack of response there from everybody, especially in a game that felt lost at a certain point in the third period, that there wasn't really anything there. Yeah, Jeremy agreeing with that. Can't score one goal with the 6-on-4. Let the Ducks do whatever they want. Disgrace. And then Julia, insane to give Karts one at the end there. They were beating him up. Yeah, I don't know what that exactly was for, aside from just being in the scrum. The way I would have handed out the penalties was, probably one to Johnston there, one to Harkins, who gave him the cross check in the back, and none to Cartier, but they kind of just gave an extra one to Johnston and then one to Cartier. Yeah, I don't know. I think just that he was in there, but yeah, I don't love that call. As for I think the Kraken getting a 4-minute power play out of it, though, was the right call. So at least, that part of it, I believe, was correct. From this one here from Wood, cannot be an acceptable result for this organization. Absolute failure of multiple power plays, failed to match the grit of the Ducks of all teams. Yeah, I mean, the Ducks, like, they have one of the league's worst penalty kills too. You'd like to convert on the power play there. Yeah, and it seems like people are largely in agreement that this loss can't happen. I'm absolutely with you. And this is the thing I was worried about, given how the Kraken had played even the last game against the Ducks and some of their games recently against bad teams, where, they've been tempting fate. They've been playing in a way that you're going to lose to most teams in the league. And if you get unlucky or you don't get the bounces or whatever it is, you could even lose to a team like the Ducks. And I think that's what happened here tonight. This one from Deacon. Honestly, kind of disappointed not seeing any fight for the Kraken for what happened to Gordon Cartier. Yeah, I mean, this is, I think we're kind of agreeing on this stuff, as far as the lack of response here. Super chat here from Light. Thank you, Light. Nah, straight up, punching Carts in the head while he's down with your gloves on should be getting a call from the league. That can kill someone. The NHL, we know the NHL, especially if it's something in a scrum or in a fight like that, they don't go after guys for that as much as they should. But yeah, Cartier was absolutely defenseless down there on the ice, and you have two guys that are just wailing away on him. I don't like that. I don't like seeing that. And that's why I'd like more response from the other guys. And also, it looked like Johnston just kind of lost his mind there. He was, even after the officials had separated everybody, he was just going back. He actually, I don't know if the broadcast caught that, but Ross Johnson was even gesturing to Joey Decord, like, come out here, come on, and like trying to goad Joey into coming over to him. I don't know what he was thinking with that, but yeah, clearly it looked like he kind of lost his mind there. I don't like seeing that that happen. See, Cheddar Slice, time to start handing out pink slips. It's not always that easy. I think we'll probably see a scratch. We did see Daniel Sprong bench for a good portion of this one later in the game after a turnover. I think we might see him scratched and somebody called up for this next game in San Jose, potentially. But I think we're kind of there with Daniel Sprong. And then Viren. So are we sticking with the Joey never allows soft goals narrative? And I knew somebody was going to bring this up, and I think it is valid, completely valid to bring this up, because I don't want to sugarcoat it, because I know I've been accused of having some kind of pro Joey bias and maybe letting him off easier than I would Grubauer in this situation. But I want to make sure I do not do that right here. that was a soft goal. That was a bad goal. That goal cannot happen, especially at that moment in the game to go down 1-0 to 2-0. That's a spot that a lot of the goals I give Grubauer a hard time for go in. Yeah, it was very bad, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it whatsoever. All I'll say is that hasn't really been typical for him. He's had a very good run of hockey and good goaltending recently. But yeah, tonight was not his best game. He seemed a little bit off. I hope it's not that he's getting tired and worn out. I would imagine he'll bounce back just fine whenever he plays next. But I might look to play Grubauer in the next one at San Jose. It's a back-to-back, so each goalie is going to get one start. I think I would let Grubauer get the next one, give Joey a night off. That's personally what I would do. But yeah, no, I mean, Joey can let in soft goals. He did tonight, and I won't, I won't try and hide that or make excuses for it. B, don't think I'll forget the complete lack of response to Joey getting knocked over, both from the Kraken and the refs. Where was the team? Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of just, go over quickly all these ones from, talking about the stuff, the lack of response from everybody or the power play and things like that, because it's a lot of the same here, as we all seem to kind of agree on this stuff. And then Fusion Mix, though, with an angle from the Ducks' perspective, I got to say I have to respect how they came out wanting vengeance for their fall in 1C. They were playing for Leo, and it shows, and Gibson is looking great after being cybernetically reconstructed. Yet you could tell the team had a little bit more fire in them, given that Leo Carlsson was out, and especially the way that they went after Ty Karche. Yeah, I'm sure that was very related to that. So, you do like to see, if you're Anaheim, that kind of fight and that kind of response. Also, John Gibson, when Dylan and I heard he was getting the start, we kind of turned to each other and we're like, oh, well, cool, you avoided Dostal. And then Dylan said, I don't know, we might get a vintage John Gibson game. We got a vintage John Gibson game. He was excellent in this one, and it kind of became a little joke between Dylan and I up in the press bridge as things kept going the way they were going. As Josh was saying, yeah, Gibson was a brick wall. Goalies are really keeping low mid teams into games. I don't know if they get the memo of tanking. Yeah, exactly. The Ducks been getting some fantastic goaltending this year. This game was no exception. Hats off to John Gibson. He was really good in this one. Andrew, will we ever bust out of the meddling middle in my lifetime? In your lifetime, probably yes. Maybe not in the short term. Sean, I really have nothing good to say. And to be clear, I really have nothing good to say about the Seattle Kraken. Chris saying it's totally unacceptable to lose like that against the Ducks in your own barn the night before a holiday. I mean, yeah, people kind of generally agreeing this is, as he calls it, an embarrassing loss. Anthony saying, yeah, maybe Friday should be a Grubauer game. Joey, give Joey the extra day. I would agree with that. Chris Stevenson is yikes. Not a good game for Chandler Stevenson. I mean, the first goal against was really on him. I mean, he had the turnover in the D zone, gives it to the Ducks, and then he's kind of a passenger net front as Vetrano's able to spin it around and put it in the net. Not the best game from him. I know Dylan was also pointing out that Daniel Sprong, just that whole line, they're not good in their D zone. We've talked about it over the last couple of weeks. They're good in the offensive zone. They better not spend too much time in the D zone or else they could get in trouble. And they got in trouble tonight. I would be, and I think as Dylan said to me, I'll let him speak for himself when he gets here later, but he said something to the effect of Stevenson and Sprong together is just too much negative in their own zone. It just can't be allowed to continue. Super chat here from Zoe. I know we've complained about Dunn's angry tendencies before, but I would have liked to see him in this game. The power play could have used him too. That's a really good point. I didn't think about Vince Dunn in this one, but this feels like the kind of game where you really could use the Dundertaker in multiple ways, because I don't think there's any way that he puts up, if he's on the ice when Joey gets taken out, he's going to go after Harkins, who did that, at least get in his face. Same thing with the Karche stuff. I feel like Dunn would get involved there and make sure that he was out there to defend his teammates. May have taken a potentially unwise penalty in doing so, but at least you don't get bullied. And then if he's out there for the power play, he's just a difference maker on the power play and at even strength. But yeah, I think the Kraken really, really could have used Vince Dunn in this game. That's for sure. That's a great super chat, Zoe. Going back into chat here. Let's see. B, two things can be true at once. Gibson had a great game and the Kraken power play is abysmal. Yeah, I think both of those are correct. See, Sean, a few things Sean would like to say to GM Ron Francis. I can understand that. Terrible Lotus, thankful the Kraken don't play or act like the Ducks. Yeah, I mean, that's true. The Kraken aren't really a team to resort to that sort of thing. And I'm glad that is the case. Like, I don't want to see them, out there kind of punching defenseless players who are down. Or, I mean, the one on Joey was just the guy lost an edge, so I'm not going to really blame him too much for that. But I am glad that is not the Kraken's game. I will say that. Super chat here from Schultz. Be good to get Francis in front of media after this stuff. Yeah, I mean, we are seeing the limits of the team that he has assembled, right? I mean, this is a team that right now looks like they are kind of playing toe to toe with teams that maybe are not very good, that maybe play down a little bit to their competition. And I think this is really the first time they haven't kind of gotten away with some of those mistakes. But if that continues, it's going to be kind of a glaring problem, especially as the schedule gets tougher. I will say this: I was kind of waiting at some point to make this point. If I'm going to be on the positive side, because I have spoken a lot of negative things, and I think there's a lot of negative to take away from this game, but I do want to look at one potential positive aspect of this one, and I hope it's a takeaway that the players have. I think this game could be the wake-up call that the Kraken need to play better and just get their house in order, because I've tried not to talk about it too much over this stretch of, they've still won a lot of their recent games, but a feeling I've had after a lot of them is just that the way that they're playing, they're not going to beat most teams. They had won 6 out of 8 prior to this, and I felt like they hadn't played really their best hockey. And I think this could be the wake-up call that this team needs to maybe avoid going in sleepwalking to a matinee game in San Jose in a couple days, the day after Thanksgiving. And maybe they're a little bit more aware, and maybe this could actually save them a loss or two against San Jose coming up, where I think if the Kraken get away with how they played tonight, if they win this game, if they find a way to come back, I feel like you go into those San Jose games more complacent than you should be. And maybe Macklin celebrating has a fantastic game and finds a way to beat you. So hopefully what I'm hoping this team takes away from it is that you have to look in the mirror, realize you haven't been playing well enough, and find that next level, because you're going to need it soon. So that's what I'm hoping the silver lining of this game is. Let's see, going back into chat. Let's see. Backup goalies, man, from George. Yeah. It does feel like it's been a thing this season. JTB Hockey, I'll say it again. Zegras needs to be in a Kraken jersey. We need his energy. I don't know how many of the Kraken's problems Zegras fixes, but he's at least a scorer. He could at least do that. I do think the Ducks are going to move on from him at some point fairly soon, but I still don't know that he really fixes the issue of not really having a star. I feel like it's kind of more of what the Kraken already have. Let's see. David saying, if the Ducks are one of the youngest teams in the league, is that still true? Yes, it is. It is true. They are one of the youngest teams in the league. You can't get pushed around by them. Yeah, you can. And it wasn't really the younger guys who were doing that. I know Zegras was kind of mixing it up with everybody. It was, kind of more the vets who were doing that stuff. But yeah, I think as compensation for having some of those younger players, the Ducks have made sure to bring in players that will not be pushed around and can defend those young guys. Guys like a Ross Johnston, guys like their captain, Radko Gudas. They've brought in those guys to be a physically formidable team so that other teams don't mess with their young players. And I think they take it personally when, say, someone like Leo Carlson gets injured by Ty Cartier there. Even though it's a clean hit, they're not necessarily going to see it that way. And that's, that's why you kind of get that pushback from them. Christian, I've been wanting to buy an ECH shirt since year one. My shirt finally came in, and this is the first game I wore it for. Oh, I'm sorry, Christian, that this had to be the first game. Keep wearing it; it'll get better. And thank you so much for getting some of our merch there. I see the ECH shirts around. Sometimes saw a couple on the concourse today. Always nice to see those. So thank you so much for supporting us there, Christian, and getting that shirt. We'll get that shirt in the win column for sure. Just stick with it. Let's see. And yeah, Olivia kind of baffled by the lack of response, but talking about how the culture seemingly has shifted to be more cohesive and together. And I would agree with that. I feel like there has been a culture shift where the guys stand up for each other a little bit more. So I am curious how the players are going to see this and look at it, because it was surprising to me. It wasn't just that I was disappointed, but I actually was surprised because I thought the culture was different than this. And so I'm curious kind of how they saw it. If maybe the guys on the bench thought maybe that Harkin's taking out Joey, that, well, he lost an edge, it's an accident, we're not going to go after him, or that the Cartier thing was, some kind of just retribution for last game or whatever it was. I'm just curious what they think about it, or if they feel like they need to do better. This one from Edward. Looks like I picked a good game to miss, traveling to visit family. Can't stay, but just want to say happy Thanksgiving to RJ, Dylan, the ECH community. Thank you so much, Edward. Appreciate that. Hope you have a very happy Thanksgiving with your family. I'll be traveling. I got to get up in about, 8 hours-ish from now to go to SeaTac and go travel with some family too. I'm going to be at the San Jose game, by the way, so I'll be covering that one from SAP Center. So looking forward to that. And again, hoping this can be the wake-up call, so maybe they give a better effort against the Sharks than what they did last time I was at SAP Center. I think that was a 3-0 shutout loss in that one. So hoping for better on that one. I got a lot of family coming to that game, so hopefully that'll be good. Super chat here from Light. If there is positives tonight, Shane continued to be great, got a point, and I thought Matty played solid. If we want to make the playoffs, we need that. I'll agree with you on, certainly on Shane. I tweeted during the game that if he got to play every game against the Anaheim Ducks, he's a 100-plus point player. He really is. His current career pace, I think, is 123 points over a full season in his games against the Anaheim Ducks. So, he's done fantastic. Shane was great again tonight. I want to see that confidence moving forward against a different opponent. And I'm sure we will see it. Like, Shane has answered and responded to this scratch very well, I think. And so I'm happy to see that for him. Happy to see he's kind of found a spot on a line with some good players. And then Matty, I thought overall he did play well. He had a lot of good chances. Of course, the story is he wasn't really able to put them in, but the fact that you're there in those areas, getting those opportunities is always a good thing. And, that'll hopefully catch up to him eventually and he'll be able to put some of those in. Going back in chat here. Sean saying Sprong needs to sit. I wouldn't be surprised to see that. Alan again talked about the power play not being good enough. I think they really sorely need some time to practice it, because I think everybody around the team knows it needs to improve. Although some of the answers, from whether it was from Dan after one of the games recently, or Dave Lowry at the intermission interview, just talking about, well, it's fine. We just had to, posting in would be nice. We got to stop hitting the post. Maybe they are a bit more insouciant than I would prefer them to be about how the power play is producing or not producing. But we'll see if Dan kind of changes his tune tonight, as I see Dylan walking out here right now. So I'm going to try and kind of go through chat pretty fast before Dylan gets set up. I'm interested to hear what he has to say. So 23 minutes. It's a quick one. So we'll see what everybody had to say. Savvy Joey wasn't stellar. Yeah, this is kind of his first bad game since the Jets game, unfortunately. And then, Steven, if Schwartz just rips it, he probably scores and probably changes the arc of the game. Was a little too patient on that one. That's one you'd like to have back. I think he was looking down at the puck rather than looking up to see where the holes were. And I think that's kind of what happened to him. But yeah, if you just rip it, it's probably in. But I get not wanting to overly rush it. Usually the patience pays off on something like that, but it certainly didn't in that situation. And then Jeff saying also where I feel having Monty as a captain in the future will be important. Need a high energy leader. Once Ebbs is gone, I could see that. And it's unfortunate too. The Kraken probably could have used a captain in a game like tonight. But Ebbs unfortunately couldn't be on the ice with them given his injury. I like this username, unnecessary zippers. Stevenson bugs me so much. I know he's good, but always looks like he's barely trying, like he could be doing anything else. Yeah, not the best game. We got it from Stevenson. We got Dylan joining us here soon in a second. He's getting set up. Then we got a couple super chats. This one from Patrick. We are just super committed to being a 500 team. It certainly seems that way. The Kraken always seem to find that 500 spot there. And And yeah, they're back to 500 yet again. They're going to need to be higher than that at some point. You gotta separate. And also, good to see you, Patrick, during intermission there over at the plant wall. That was nice to see you. And then super chat here from Schultz. Does anyone have a spare buoy to send to Australia? And there Dylan joins us here. You got the credential in the shot. You might want to.
Good catch.
Yeah, no, those. Sorry, Schultz, but yeah, those buoy bobbleheads. Maybe you can find one online, but man, those things went like hotcakes. I have never seen such a long line just wrapping before the start of doors opening to get a bobblehead before. This is easily
crazy.
the most. Yeah, this is the most in-demand bobblehead that I've ever seen. So everyone loved those buoy bobbleheads. It's going to be tough to get your hands on one. So Dylan, we've got you here now. You just talked to the players. You talked to Dan. What was the general feeling around this one? There's been a lot of negativity here in chat. There's been a lot of frustration. The word unacceptable has been thrown around a lot. How did the guys see this?
Pretty similar, as they just turn off all my lights here.
I know, yeah, they just all went out.
I mean, right, like I would say that those opinions are shared by everybody in there. Like everybody knows what this is, right? Like you lost to the Ducks, and it wasn't particularly a close game either. And I think that's the other side of this, is that you got outworked, you got out muscled, and you got out efforted, and that's unacceptable, kind of regardless of who you're playing. That's just not what this team wants to be, and that's just not where Dan wants this team to be, and how he wants them to play. And that's, you know what I mean? Like, that's just the bottom line.
All right. Well, I'm glad to hear that everyone kind of accepted that and knows that this is an unacceptable effort. They need to be better. And I mentioned what I told you a little bit earlier, that I was hoping this would be a wake-up call for everybody, that knowing they need to play better. Now, you mentioned out-muscled, and I think the Kraken, I'll say it, I think they got bullied tonight.
Yeah.
Was that addressed at all, the physical side of things?
Not really. Tolvanen talked a little bit about physical stuff, just kind of what happened at the end there with Ty Cartier being down and everything. And he said, look, they knew coming into this one that Cartier might have, a little bit of a target on his back after the last game in Anaheim and the hit on Leo Carlsson. And so they were, maybe expecting something there with him. But as a line, you don't want to see your guy on the ice like that, getting, in a vulnerable situation, and they kind of got to do a better job of coming back on that. That's really, though, all that was talked about with the kind of out physicaled and everything else. It was more like reading between the lines with Dan, and the questions around, maybe effort and his responses to that, you think effort, but you think of like going to those places on the ice. You think about them kind of crashing in around Joey and being able to pick up rebounds or things like that in this one. And that's where you go. I mean, you and I were looking at it and talking about this up on the press bridge, RJ. How many times was Mason McTavish behind the defense in this one and just kind of standing there, and nobody ever engaged with him, right? Like, he's not a big guy. Like, you could move him if you want to, and they just kind of didn't.
Exactly. And I think there were multiple layers of kind of getting out efforted, pushed around in this one. And yeah, interesting to hear that there wasn't maybe a ton on the extracurriculars and things like that. I know the players don't always love to talk about that, so I wasn't expecting a whole lot, but I think it was a big storyline and something that definitely a lot of people pointed out in chat. Is before we head to a couple super chats we had, was there anything else that stood out to you about anything that anyone said, any takes from the players or coaches?
So Dan was asked about Daniel Sprong essentially being benched, right? And he was asked kind of what his mindset was there, but the question kind of led into it, and so he responded with like, well, that was my mindset. And he said, look, he wanted to give guys like Bjorkstrand and McCann the chance to kind of go out there and get more playing time, because they were playing well in the game and you needed goals. And in those situations, you want to give the players who are playing well the opportunity to go out there and do something for you, which was his very diplomatic way, I feel like, of saying, we had 3 goals come off of defensive zone turnovers. He probably also was kind of tired of seeing that Stevenson-Sprong pairing. I know I was. Kind of just minutes into this game, it was already a problem again. And so I have to think that contributed beyond just, those guys were playing well and you want to get them out there for an extra shift or two if you can.
Yeah, that is a very diplomatic answer, I'll say, there on Daniel Sprong, but I think we kind of see what was going on there. So now we'll jump back into chat here. We got a couple super chats. First one from Patrick, talking about the mascot there. I still would have preferred Grunge. I agree.
Yeah.
Grunge is the best. Aside from Seagull, if you remember from that video, my mascot proposal, I'm still on Team Seagull.
Okay, sure.
All right, we'll leave it at that. And then we got a super chat here from the Mark Cast, and I like this one personally. In the words of Shannon Sharp, don't accept anything in a win that you wouldn't in a loss. The Kraken and their fans have done a lot of that recently. And that kind of echoes a lot of the points that I was making earlier in this post game, where I was telling people after a lot of these recent wins, it felt like the Kraken had not actually played all that well. There were some real deficiencies in their game, but they were able to get away with it because of the quality of their competition. And now we're seeing them finally face the consequences for it, losing a couple points. I don't know. How do you feel about the overall level of play? And do you agree, or would you want to push back on that?
No, I would agree with that. I mean, we've been talking about this, right? And we very much kind of started that all those wins on the homestand, kind of talking about that. And if we go back in time, I was the one that was kind of most like, look, we should maybe stop talking like this, because at some point something bad will happen, right? Or they're not playing great right now. It is possible that one of these teams could beat them. We then ran into a Columbus team that looked terrible in that game, a Chicago team that looked somehow even worse, the Islanders that just, they made a game of it, but again, they were not particularly dangerous in any of them. And so I get like where you could build up that stuff, and I kind of just let it go, because the bottom line is they weren't getting burned at all. But then I did try to kind of bring it up, and this happened very differently than what I kind of thought. But I did bring up last week that, look, these 2 games against the Ducks, Ducks are a weird, dangerous team, right? They've been getting great goaltending from Dostal. Of course, it ends up being John Gibson tonight that gives them the good goaltending performance. But they're a team that can get good goaltending, and then they do just have these offensive pieces that can go out there, and on a night in which they're feeling it, like tonight, they can create something. They can do something. They can break free of the fact that they're playing with zero structure and on a very poorly coached team. But that top 6 that they have, when they're all in sync with each other, they can actually go out there and do something dangerous. And we are not the first team that they've come up and grabbed and done this to. But it's still one of those things that you think, if you were able to kind of play solid fundamental hockey, you should have been able to walk away from this one. And I think that's ultimately what we keep coming back to with this team is, right, the offense doesn't score enough, usually because they're just not doing the fundamentals right. It's great to see Shane out there going to the net front, playing hard. He picks up that great assist. I mean, how fast he gets that puck off his stick, RJ, was incredible. And really, everybody was talking about that goal with the effort from Eli Tolvanen to go in hard on the forecheck, force that kind of turnover in the offensive zone that Shane Wright's able just to grab and immediately throw out to Oliver Bjorkstrand, who's in a good spot. But also, Shane Wright had at least 4 tips net front in this one, and they just didn't happen to go in. And that's been the story of a lot of players on this team. But as far as not getting pucks to go in, but Shane Wright was there for those opportunities, and he was playing that solid fundamental hockey. But then there's other times where we watch that power play, RJ, and there was just no bumper. And I don't necessarily think that that's because the coaching staff is reinventing the power play and saying we want to go for more of an umbrella look and we don't want to do the 1-3-1 because the other unit played that way. I just think it was nobody filled that space. Like, nobody wanted to be the person in that space. They all wanted to exist on the perimeter. And so I still think this is one of those things where at some point it's got to get through to these guys that they have to start playing a more fundamental game in the offensive zone when they can't use their speed to attack the other team, and they were not able to use their speed in this one, right? The Ducks definitely limited their ability to attack through the neutral zone. You get a couple good chances, especially that Shane Wright one, beautiful feed from Oliver Bjorkstrand, who enters the zone along the board, sends it over to Shane. Shane's able to go in and get a great chance. But you weren't able to really get a lot of those going in this one. And then it just kind of shows yet again, they don't have any sort of existing approach once they're in the offensive zone that can lead to really anything for them.
Right, and that's been a problem for them all season. If the other team can take away that rush speed, they don't have a whole lot left. And the Kraken had a few good chances early on, but I think the Ducks kind of adjusted mid-game and took away some of that stuff, and it's an issue. So I'm going to go down toward the bottom of chat here. And
I was going to say, have you talked though also about that this game may have been cursed before it even started?
I did not mention that yet. I was waiting for you to come on. I wasn't sure if it would be in the background, and it is in the background actually.
Yeah.
I was waiting to even point to it. So as you can see there in the background, Dylan, maybe you could give it a little point there, right there. So the tarp or whatever that goes over the windows, as you can see it, curtains. Yeah, the curtain that goes over the windows is stuck at that position. And so it's stuck there where it won't go up, but it's also stuck where it won't go down. And during the pregame show, we noticed that was the case, and so some light was making its way in, or a little bit, during the pregame show, and so we were looking at that and we said, that looks like an omen. Who knows if it's a good omen or bad omen, but it sure looked like an omen to us. And then, yeah, I guess it was a bad omen.
Yeah, it was definitely a bad omen, and that at that point we should have just gotten the lost graphics ready to go, I guess.
Yeah, probably. I still had trouble believing it, but yeah, I guess it was a bad omen too. And I think also like Tommy Burton too. There was something that went wrong with his bike or whatever toward the end of the anthem.
Yeah, sounded like maybe he was a little sick or something.
Yeah, so a few things going wrong early on in this one. Maybe we should have seen that coming.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to disrupt your flow there.
No, all good. So going down toward the end of the chat, and by the way, I know it was a very active chat, so there were a lot of chats in there before you got here. So if I skipped over anything that you said, just put it right back in the chat, and I'll read it here. Like from Christian, what a contrast. Disco lights at CPA after a win, Dylan in the dark after a loss. It really did have that loss type feeling, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. And I'm telling you, because I've been going down for all of these losses the last couple times that I've been the one to go down and do the media stuff. Normally, the locker room after a loss is always bad, right? Like no player likes to lose. Normally Dan can have something, right? There is like something positive that he'll really kind of lead with or go with, that you can tell he feels passionate about and that he's proud of, and all of that stuff. And also normally he finds a way to make a joke in that presser at some point. This was the first time, just him walking into the room, that I was just like, oh, Dan's mad. Like he's just actually straight up mad. And there wasn't really any of that stuff. And that's why it was very much, you're saying all those things that chat was talking about, the unacceptable, all that kind of stuff. That's why I think, everybody in that room is definitely with you, because I've never seen Dan Bylsma after a loss so far this season kind of look as mad and upset as he did tonight.
Okay, I am actually glad to hear that, because I really just don't want them to feel like this is okay and the recent run of play is fine. Hey, identifying it as half the problem, right?
Yeah.
The other half is a little more difficult in fixing it, but hey, you need to have that first half before you can work on the second.
I was going to say, the other thing is, I mean, I also get it from the standpoint of like, when was the last time this team lost this big? Right?
Yeah.
Like they've been playing a lot of close games. A lot of their losses have been close games where he could once they got back from that road trip, the long road trip, that's been the case. And so normally when walking into this situation, it's more of like, oh, he's frustrated that the team kind of waits until their back's against the wall to really start turning it on, or the slow start, or there's something along the way. But at least the effort there, they're able to hang their hat on and say like, okay, there's that good effort. If we can just get that more consistent for the full 60, we can move forward. That didn't exist tonight, right? That wasn't the scenario tonight for the first time in a while, where it was just like, no, you're straight up with minutes left losing 5-2 and you're down by 3 and you need to figure that out. And I think that's part of it.
The only other loss they had really in this building this season that was that big was that Carolina game. And that also kind of felt like a pivotal moment there where everyone was upset with it too. So that makes sense. Super chat here from Andrew. Thank you, Andrew, for this one. What a sad game. Playing like this at home, they have no pride. Doubting going to the Saturday one as much as I love this organization. I mean, those are some strong words there. And I mean, I think certainly within the context of this game, I don't think you're wrong. Like the Kraken got bullied in this one. I would hope we'll see a bit of a rebound, not just Saturday, but, on Friday and then again on Saturday. But yeah, it does leave you wondering kind of where the level of this organization is at.
I mean, I don't know that I'd like totally go that far. I think ultimately there's still a mid team, and there's the normal roster construction stuff, and
well,
and
that's what
things
I'm
like
saying.
that.
Just the limit of
Like,
kind of what this team and what this group can be.
well, yes, but that exists in like kind of a different tone, I would say, than that. I will say this: Tolvanen talked about how important these next two games are, and was already looking ahead to them, and very much looking at them from a standpoint of the team needing to work hard in those and treat them very seriously. Like that was part of what Ellie Tolvanen was talking about in the locker room after this one. So I would not be super doom and gloom going into it. I think like this was your complacency game where you come out, you think you've got it, you think you can come back after you're down in the first period. You do come back, and then you get hit with that response goal again. Kind of first time in a while that we've seen one of those. Not just being real, and I think that this was the complacency game. I don't think then you have to worry about that being the case the next time they come out or the next home game on Saturday.
Yeah, and I guess where I would worry is if they come out really flat and lose against San Jose on Friday. That's where I would start to worry, because then the message didn't get there. But they've got their shot to go and redeem themselves against San Jose, a team that is certainly beatable. They can go do that, and
beatable, but also kind of hot right now. So
they are kind of hot, but you can beat them. They're not some
Yeah.
juggernaut that you cannot defeat. Like if you play well, you should beat them. You should, if you're playing your best game. And so that's a good spot to be in, to have that opportunity in front of you. It just worried me a little bit that it felt like they were immune to complacency, like that just some consequences.
They were getting lucky. Like they were getting away with stuff.
Actually can exist. I was like, oh, it's a little scary.
Right.
So this comment from Bert Krem, because we got a lot of people agreeing with this one, so I wanted to make sure to read it. How do you look Cartier in the eyes as the team let him get beat down, or letting Joey get ran multiple times? I sat there embarrassed. I'm not to try and bring things back to the negative here, but it's something that people brought up a lot tonight. And I kind of wanted your thoughts on really that whole situation. I talked about it on the Harkins one with Joey. I thought he clearly lost an edge there. It wasn't intentional, but somebody still needs to get in his face. And why is he taking that line, as you said, during the game? What are your thoughts overall on that sort of thing and the lack of response? Does that worry you at all?
I mean, we're back to this conversation from last year, which again, like a lot of conversations from last year, the one constant has been, for the vast majority of this group, they are the same players from last year. We weren't getting it from them last year. Are we really that surprised that it's not happening this year? Like, you know what I mean? Right. So there's an element of that's kind of my answer. I agree on the Joey situation. He loses an edge. I understand why why a ref would look at that. And I don't know if you saw this, RJ, but the ref looked at Joey and did this, like what am I supposed to call?
The ref saw it, and
Right. He's like, what am I supposed to call? You call the fact that he was taking a line through the crease. Like there was no reasonable reason for him to be taking such a tight line. At the very least, he was going to purposely buzz Joey. Like that's an issue. And so you do have to kind of deal with that. I understand though why the Kraken didn't necessarily respond to it right away. It's because they were already taking the puck up the ice. Right? Like I don't think any of them really saw it, because they were focused on the offensive zone. After they see a replay, something like that, do they do something? I don't know, because they were getting an offensive zone face-off. Like, I don't know really when the Kraken were supposed to respond to that entirely, unless you wait when you're down 3 and you just take a run at the guy. But that's just never been this group, and I don't know that we necessarily want it to be that identity. I think if you see it in the moment, you can step up for it and you can deal with it. On the Ty Cartier situation where he's down, or unless you want to respond to that first.
Real quick, I'll just say that if I remember correctly, it seemed like the shift went on for a little bit, for a little while after that, and so
It
there
did,
were more opportunities. I was just waiting for someone to go get in his
but it
face.
was all in the
And
offensive zone.
right, okay, then right after that first whistle, you just have someone skate up to him and say something. You don't need to punch him in the face. You don't need to drop the gloves. You don't need to say square up. Somebody just get up in his face and say something.
Well,
That's all you need to do.
he went off on a line change after that, so I would not surprise me if somebody skated by the
I
bench and
don't know
said something.
exactly where
Like,
exactly when he went off. Yeah.
right. I'm just saying we don't know that somebody didn't say something. We just know that they didn't respond in like a physical, agitated way. And I get that some people want that, but like I said, the whole situation around the play it didn't make sense for that to be the case unless you're going to risk again not having somebody be a part of the offensive chance, or you risk having that face-off come out of the offensive zone, which you're down in the game. You don't want to risk that. So I can kind of excuse that one away. The Ty Cartier one, yeah, you gotta be there for him. I know what like some guys were trying to get involved. Like Tolvanen's caught in a headlock and he's still doing a good job of trying to get in there. And then after that, the linesman has him. But it really did feel like Tolvanen was the only guy trying to get in there and come to the defense of Ty Cartier. I don't know where the defensemen were, because that would be the thing. They have the opportunity coming in a little bit later because they're just farther away to really see the situation that's going on. Don't just kind of partner up with somebody and stand there. Go around and make sure that the guy on the ground is safe, because that's a very vulnerable situation beyond the fact that he's actively getting punched while he's on the ground. Actually go around there and do something. I will also say, and this I've said this for all 4 years, it feels like that we've done this. Why can refs not get involved in this? I understand that they have to be there to call penalties and they need to have a little bit of vision to do that. You're telling me nobody can do that from afar? You can't have an off-ice official who pays attention to that and can see that, and so that you can have 4 people involved in separating these large physical human beings from each other, instead of having to rely on 2 guys where one guy is completely boxed out and the other guy is already trying to pull people off the pile. Like, it's mind-boggling to me that isn't something that's an option for them.
I'm with you on that. And I went back and I'm kind of watching the video. I took the replay of it here to kind of dissect it. The first thing, yeah, you do notice both referees are just standing there feet away from it
Every
watching it happen.
time.
But that's the policy. That's what they're,
I know,
I
it's
guess,
just
supposed
yeah.
to do.
Yeah, it is.
But
I just think that it's one that needs to change.
yeah, agreed. No, I agree with you completely. And then, yeah, as for the defenseman, yeah, Larson just partners up with Colangelo and just takes him away. And then Evans is just kind of, jawing with Hellison and kind of takes him away. But they weren't really trying to get to the heart of that. And the other opportunity to go after Harkins, because he was the guy who ran into Joey Decord, was right there, because he was one of the 2 guys who was going after Ty Cartier there on the ground. Who finally stepped in? It was Shane Wright.
Doesn't surprise me. He's that kind of guy.
He is that kind of guy. So, I mean, credit to Shane right there for doing that. I'd like to see maybe somebody else, maybe like an Adam Larson, or, I mean, heck, even a Reichler Evans instead of Shane, but at least he was the guy that finally, just to pull him off of Cartier, so there was only 1 guy going after Cartier instead of 2. At least Shane did that. So sorry, I don't want to leave these super chats for too long, because they've been here for a while, but just didn't want to interrupt the flow here. But thank you for the super chat here, Andrew. Not being a doomer, it just makes me sad, but we got it no matter what. And then from Paul, blow it up. So we got a couple. There's only so much. Look, given the moves Ron Francis made too, there's only so much you can blow it up.
Right. And like when it comes to like the doom and gloom, and I'm not getting on anybody for being negative after this one. It sucks when you lose, and particularly when you lose to a team is worse than your team, right? Like that sucks. There's no way around it. It feels bad. I do think that at some point we are just going to have to make peace with the reality of what we know. And I know that we have a really smart community that is involved with us here, and a smart chat and all of that kind of stuff. And that is, we know the limitations of this roster. We know the situation that they're in from a cap perspective, from the contracts that they've handed out, and kind of what the realistic upside is as a borderline playoff team, and what their realistic downside is, which is a team that misses the playoffs but isn't going to necessarily be picking in the top 5, right? We get that they are mid, and that based on things, they might be mid for a couple years. and it's going to be tough and it's going to be whatever. It's one of those that I am curious to see, and I don't know when it would happen, but at what point we kind of accept that this year and then we just go with, you know, we just go with it. And we just go, yeah, this is our team, this is the team, but it's our team, and this is the team that I want to go to, and I see, and all of that stuff. I think it would be easier to do that if it was cheaper to get into the building, which is a different conversation. I think that would make it a lot easier for a lot of people, and I don't want to discount that issue. But like I do think, because we've come around to this so much, and as the Kraken go back to 500 and they just want to be here, and all of this stuff, and we know about the long-term contracts and the decisions that Ron Francis has made and all of it. I do think, like, we keep bringing up the same issues. I'm wondering when the apathy sets in, right? Right now it feels like entropy, and I don't know that we want that ultimately, and I don't think it will be that forever. I think at some point the apathy will set in, and I'm wondering when that'll happen. And I'm not saying that it should. I think it's always good to put pressure on these people, the decision makers, and to demand more of the team that you're spending a lot of money to go and see. But that's just from like a social, almost like a social experiment standpoint. I'm wondering when that kicks in.
Same here. And yeah, it's a long season. There's a lot of this, and I'm looking ahead at, because up until this game, I feel like the Kraken's results, win or loss, have been pretty darn predictable this season. If you just go by, look, they're mid, they're going to lose to the good teams.
They're better than this team. They're worse than that one.
Yeah, exactly. And so I've been able to pretty much, and it's not just me, like, I feel like it's just been pretty easy to predict what they're going to do given their run of play. And I worry about, because look, you got San Jose, and those should be certainly at least one win, but probably should be 2 wins, right? But this next run you have, and I was looking at it before the start of the game because I was curious, like, if you just go by that you beat any team that's not particularly good, or you lose to any team that's good, I think it's 4-12, 4 wins, 12 losses in that stretch coming up, because you face a lot of good teams and you face a lot of them on the road. And that's where I feel like it might kind of go away from that apathy if you do get that much worse than 500. That's what I worried about, is if they can't eke out those wins against the good teams, because they're going to have to.
Right. No, they do. And I see the comments in here and stuff talking about, blowing it up and wanting to become, a bottom feeder, as Byron says, and all that kind of stuff. And I get that. And again, in a vacuum, that is what every team should do. If they're not good enough to basically go for it and really definitively be a playoff team, that is the thing that makes the most sense for you, is to bottom out, draft high for several years, accumulate those potential star players, and then build your way out of it. We've talked in the past why that's not really an option for the current management of this team, and for a lot of people related to this team. And I do think, I had it. What was it? I mean, it's one of those that I don't know. Like, do you want that on the season where your viewership numbers have just spiked by over 3x, and you have 5x viewership for your pre and post game, and for all of that stuff? Like, from a health of the community standpoint, from a health of the fan base, from growing the game standpoint, which is very important to you and I do, like, again, I just don't know that you can do that. I don't know that you can signal to all these people that are just now finally able to watch Kraken games. I don't know that halfway through the year you can be like, look, we're mid, we're going to blow it up. And you trade away a Turbo, and you trade away Yanni Gord and all of these fan favorite players. It's already bad enough that you've transitioned from like a Grubauer to a Joey Decord. And I still see just seas of Grubauer jerseys and people who are very supportive of him. But how do you explain to them that, like, well, look, he's just not playing well? He's just not the starter anymore. Stuff like that. Like, I think it's one of those things that I genuinely do. And I'm not saying this because it would help us, or it helps Ron Francis, or it helps the ownership group of the team. I genuinely think it's better for hockey culture in Seattle if the team really does give it a go for at least the rest of this season, just because you do want to build that fan base and you want to get kids interested in it. You want to take those people that casually flip on the channel and catch a game, or as they're clicking through the basic stuff and they see the game on King or Kong, you want them to see something that looks at least competitive, right? And I just think it's important.
Yeah, the TV thing is the biggest thing of all, and it brought me so much joy to see those TV numbers that came in so much bigger than last year, that so many people are able to watch this team and hopefully see something that they want to get into and want to be a fan of. And so yeah, I'll agree with you there. I it's tough because
And
I
I do. Yeah, I was gonna say I only say that because you do have stuff coming, right? Like you have Chalet, who now that he's comfortable in North America does look good, and he looks like the first round pick that you were actually picking in an extremely deep draft, where he would have been a potential top 10 pick in a lesser draft, right? Even if he was just a year younger. You have a Berkeley Catton who is a top 10 draft pick who will be coming. And I know Light has the super chat about him having
yes.
4 points tonight, right? Like you do already have some of these guys. You have somebody like a Jagger Firkus who is going to be a fan favorite. And while I may, not think he can turn into a 30 goal scorer or anything at the NHL level, maybe he hangs around in that middle six role and he's able to do stuff on, here and there. And that's what you go with. I just think like you have I feel like enough of a prospect pool that you can do this without feeling like you have to blow it up and go for a Porter Martone at 4th overall or something.
Yeah, and I see all the comments in here talking about, Viren, they aren't really competitive though. And for all you're not wrong. Like again, they're probably at least at this rate on the outside of the playoff bubble. And what is it? Ricky saying, the goaltending is too good for bottoming out. I think that's another thing that's
That's
true,
something
right?
you'd have to deal with. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something you have to do. And I'm seeing so many comments though to the effect of, or even I saw one earlier. I'm sorry, I can't see who it is right away because I'm trying to find it. But saying that what they have on the ice right now might not be good enough to compete with the Sonics anyway if they just stay mid. Like I think that's not wrong. And so I don't want to make anyone talking like that seem like they're like I think they're wrong, because certainly in the on paper sense you're right, Dylan. You and I play a lot, or we love to play a lot of like GM type video games, hockey GM video games, where there is, NHL franchise mode or the more complicated stuff. And in a video game, both of us would be tearing this thing down right away. Like that is the obvious move to do on paper in a video game. No question. You would have traded everybody by now because you do it even when it's not necessary. But I would have done it too. And so I just want to make sure, like, all the people saying that kind of thing with those takes, like you're not wrong,
No,
but there's other factors.
Right. In a world where, like I said, in a vacuum or in a video game where there's no consequences, it's so much easier to do that. And I just don't think that you can. And like I said, you have enough that I don't know that you entirely need to. Do you need to work and make this roster different? Yes, you do. Like I'm not saying that it's
Yes.
not, but I would
You need turnover.
they are competitive. Like we talked about earlier. This was the first time they've lost by 3 in a while. Right? Like
Yeah.
it had been a minute. It wasn't that long ago that they were playing well at home before that big road trip, and you were losing by 1 to Colorado. You lose in overtime to a Winnipeg that was undefeated at that point, right? Like they have been in it, and that's all I'm saying is you just have to be in games. You don't have to win the majority of them, but you have to be in games. This is really the first time in a long time that they haven't been in the game, and I think that does mean something.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. Your point to quality of competition, but you're right.
Yes, I know there is that element of it, but
yeah, we have a couple super chats here. Another one from Andrew. Thank you so much, Andrew. I know you've had a few of these in here tonight. Cool with us being mid. No, it's not that easy, and love our NHL team, but tonight wasn't against the Dallas Stars. Much love and respect, regardless. And it's people actually rough night for the Stars tonight, getting beat pretty bad by the Chicago Blackhawks.
Just saying, the NHL is a weird league, right? Like this just happens. It does in hockey.
It does. Yeah. On the other hand, it felt like this one made sense, but yes, it does happen. Super chat here from Light. If you want to feel good about Chalet, just look at his points versus Rutger McGroarty.
Yeah, like he's doing fantastic, and he's doing it with like limited ice time too. Just saying,
yeah.
like he is absolutely killing it down there.
Yeah, Jessica with the love, Chalet. And I know you were asked by Jeremiah Sportsbeard. I don't know if he's in here right now on the way back from the game, but you were asked by him earlier today as we were meeting up with him, who's the guy in Coachella Valley to look out for? You immediately said Chalet.
Yeah, no, he is absolutely the guy to watch right now. And
yeah,
I mean, I see Jason, we're only 3 points ahead of a top 5 pick. Yeah, but you're also only a couple points out of a playoff spot. Like the West is a mess right now.
It is so bunched up in an absolute mess. Yeah, you can
go. Yeah, go for it. No, go for
I
it.
would say you could go either way. That's all I was going to say. Like you go up or down by 5 points, and you're in a great spot or a great spot for a top draft pick.
Right. And the other thing, and maybe this is why I'm more optimistic, is because so many of their issues can be addressed, right? Like so many of them are basic things, like just playing, a different power play look, and you just contribute one goal a game from the power play, and you get that special teams going. I thought the PK looked a little bit more active tonight. I think they are actively addressing that. I mean, obviously they had to, but I think like they are actively addressing that. There's room for growth there. You get Shane Wright, and he actually looks like the player you want him to look like. He's doing the things that he did last year in Coachella Valley. He's picked up points in all of these games now since he's been back. Yes, it's against the Ducks. Yes, that's his favorite team clearly to play against based on his overall production. But the bottom line is he's playing solid fundamental hockey that should not go away once the competition turns away from being the Anaheim Ducks. And so I think there's enough positives there. We've talked about it before, right? Get more guys who go to the net. I know it's not what these guys want to do, but if you can get through to them that you can actually do that, you're going to get Vince Dunn back here potentially later this week, even for one of these games against the Sharks. So like there is lights here, and because the West is such a mess, and you are in that position where yes, you're only a couple points out from being a really bad team, but you're also only a couple points out of being a playoff team. It just feels too early to be like, yes, we need to blow it up, or it feels too early to just be like, yeah, we can really write this team off. I really think this team can be in this spot where they're going to be hovering around playoff contention deep into next calendar year. I just think we'll be there. Whether we get there or not, I don't know. And what that means for the long-term, franchise future, yeah, it's not great to be mid like that and to be in that spot. It just isn't. But I just don't think it's really that bad a spot, despite, losing to an Anaheim Ducks team tonight that's not very good.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Vince Dunn coming back, because I certainly wouldn't. I'm not ready to make any strong conclusions about what this team is until I see how it is with Vince Dunn healthy and back with the team. And it's fair to be skeptical of, okay, it's one player, Vince Dunn. How much of a difference can that really make? Look at the Kraken's record splits. We know the numbers with and without Vince Dunn. He can make more of a difference than I ever would have thought a single player can make. So I'm gonna wait until he returns to really kind of pass some judgment here. Wow, we're over the hour mark.
I was going to say they're giving us the the light switch there.
So we'll do a few rapid fire to close it out here. This one from Kyle though. RJ, can you help me understand how long and what it would take to get out of our cap hell? I absolutely can do that, but not enough time for it right now. The best thing would be the Armchair GM stream that I do every month on Patreon. We will go completely into depth about that. And actually, I have a whole plan that I was going to do for a teardown. I know Viren had asked for that, but the power went out with the giant bomb cyclone. But I will get to that for the next Armchair GM stream. So if you thought about the Patreon, you could even try it out for free as it gets closer. That would be the time and place, because I go into a lot of depth about that sort of thing. So just wanted to mention that as well. And then Zoe asking about, oh wait, no, this is everyone talking about Dunn here. Let's see, or anything else we want to pick out before we go?
I mean, look, and Jessica's right here. Dunn would have spent 10 minutes in the box tonight, and I would have loved it. I mean, he is one of those guys that helps get the physical game going. And if he was out there when Ty Cartier was on the ground and getting punched, he would have been involved. Like he is part of your answer to those questions around that.
Absolutely. And sticking with the Jessica comment too, cool with being mid. I just wasn't cool with them not standing up for each other. I think that's a very fair take.
I think those are two separate things for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So with that, I mean, anything else that you wanted to add from the coaches, the players, or anything as we head out to play a couple games against San Jose, who's actually looking better than we might have thought if we had checked in kind of a week ago. They've had a couple big wins. What are we thinking about the Sharks?
I mean, as they're playing me off here, I think that it is one of
the music.
I think it's one of those things where, look, if this is the first time we've seen Dan mad, right? This is the first time I've seen Dan mad. Teams seemed already locked in for those Sharks games. I think it's going to be, hopefully we see something good from them. I think we will see something good for them.
Yeah, I think so too, and I will be there in the building to see it, whatever happens. So looking forward to that. I will join you from San Jose on the next post game live. But in the meantime, hope everybody has a very happy Thanksgiving. And
Definitely.
Dylan and I, we are thankful for all of you, thankful for this community, and thankful to be able to spend after every game, the good or the bad, with all of you. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody, and we will see you next time.